Hello, my name is Lucas, this is a Bit of Lit, and I'm here to talk about LINGHUN, which is a new up-and-coming novella written by Ai Jiang, who is a Chinese-Canadian author who comes from Fujian in China, and her family migrated to Canada. I let you know that because I've seen it on Twitter quite a few times because I follow her, but also it informs the plot and the characters, I should say, of the novella, because it follows a Chinese-Canadian family that moves to a place called Home, Homecoming of Missing Entities, all caps. And in this place they buy a house. And in their house they are reconnecting with a missing entity, the long-lost son who died, and is a lost soul that they are grieving. This causes a lot of tension within the family because the person who is so strongly adamant about reconnecting with the dead is the mother, who has some problems with her daughter Wenqi because of her overbearing attitude and seeming favoritism of the son. This caused some problems throughout their family. The father doesn't seem to play a huge role. He's just kind of there and doesn't seem terribly happy about anything that's going on. Seems like he's very uncomfortable. But there are other characters too, like Liam, who lives with his family out in the yard because he's a lingerer. He's part of a family that has come to Home without a house to buy. But that's okay, because once a house becomes available, the lingerers will have a bidding war, quite literally, to try and snatch up the next house so they can try to reconnect with their long-lost loved one. And then there is Mrs., who has been living there the longest, and there's a lot of mystery surrounding her. And there's also a lot of, talk and gossip about who she is and why she's there and what's going on with this crazy place that seems out of time and out of space and out of place and all that. What is interesting about this novella that I think works quite well is that, first of all, when Mandarin is used, and I believe it's Mandarin because I could understand the English pinyin of some of the names, like the name of the novel, LINGHUN, which means soul, I believe. And in this place, there are souls abound everywhere, right? And then, of course, there's the long-lost brother of Wenqi. His name is Tianqi, which means weather, which she explains in the novella. Because he's temperamental and shifting moods and all that. Wenqi, I believe, has something to do with like bookishness or literature in a way, because she wants to have a kind of literary life like Ai Jiang does. Because she's a hardworking author, constantly sending out new stories and poems and stuff. Yeah, because I think Wenhua means literature, but anyway, that's another thing entirely. But Mrs. actually has a name. She's been given a name, LINGHUN, by her husband, who she's trying to reconnect with, but he won't come. But that relationship seems quite ugh. But her real name is Huijia, which means to return home, which again is explained in the novella. But in this sense, the sparse use of Mandarin here and there is quite nice to see, connecting with the roots and all that, trying to bring that into the story for English readers is really quite touching. And, it has, I think, a lot of significance for her and for a lot of people that, are immigrants, feel like they've lost maybe some touch with their culture of their homeland, maybe. Yeah. Anyway, so I think that's quite cool, and I think it is well done. The other thing is that we have three different perspectives, quite literally, because Wenqi's chapters are in first person, Liam's chapters are in third person, and Mrs. LINGHUN or Huijia's chapters are in second person. And I think those are the best written chapters. I really enjoy those ones. And I think that, yeah, I think it's the most effective too. And it really helps us understand, you know, that sort of immediacy that you get with second person, because she's been there the longest and she's maybe the most desperate, even though it's kind of a hopeless situation where she seems to have married someone who doesn't respect her or her culture, and doesn't even want to use her name, and gives her another name using her language. But that's just something really gross about this guy. It makes me very uncomfortable and angry, which works really well. I mean, these chapters following Mrs. or LINGHUN or Huijia, I mean, they made me feel the most, usually angry. Or kind of, you know, sympathy, empathy, sorrow for her, pity maybe. Yeah, so I really like that character the most. I feel like there was a lot there, really well written, and the choice to use second person was extremely effective. And I will say, though, that if I had to criticize the novella, something that does bring it down for me is that sometimes the word choice felt very similar among all three perspectives. And I think that's probably quite hard, as someone who doesn't write myself, that's probably quite hard to pull off. I think the way it's done, the idea and the whole concept of the whole novel is very clever, and I really like that. But I do sort of feel like this is still an author finding her own voice, and going for something really experimental, but not perfectly landing it, because sometimes it just felt like, yeah, the word choice feels the same in all three, when in my mind, if you're going to do this kind of thing, they should all feel distinct and unique from each other. But that's kind of a gripe I have that brought it down for me, because I did like the idea and I love the concept, and was very passionate about Mrs. once you finally start to see more of her, especially when she goes into, she tries to be the gardener for Wenqi's family, and then it just goes downhill from there for her. That whole moment, and you know, when she's screaming, Liam, 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 which is the name of her long-lost husband, also the name of the boy who's the lingerer that Wenqi forms a connection with as well. Man, really great. But yeah, I just felt like, if these voices for these parts could have been a little more distinct and unique, then fantastic. Though I will say, the last two chapters, like the very ending of this whole novella, pitch perfect. I felt the sorrow, I felt some dread, I felt some heartache, I felt that the hope, not hopelessness, but the kind of despair and horrors of it all were perfectly executed and perfectly, you know, written in a way that really got me. So, and that was from Wenqi's perspective. The last chapter, the chapter before that was Huijia. Anyway, point being, yeah, the ending, when everything's finally coming together to resolve, it doesn't resolve in a pretty way, which you could not have expected it to throughout the whole novel, given the horrible violence that you are subject to and the traumas of Wenqi's family that they're reliving, especially because of the mother and her refusal to give up, and then of course Mrs. story and the tragedy of Liam's family as well. Yeah, overall quite cool. Doesn't really work for me in some ways, but concept is great. Some very strong character work. Cool idea to use the different points of views while writing, and pitch perfect ending. I really love the ending. I was so yeah, that's all I can say. I really wanted more after the ending, and that's, I think, you know, because it left me wanting more right at the end, that tells me that it was pretty good. So I want to recommend it. And then you can tell me what you think of the different perspectives. Does it work well for you? Am I just out of my mind and making a big deal over nothing about word choice and all that? It's kind of a minor gripe, but let me know. I hope you will check it out because, yeah, I think it's a good start to a young and promising career. So good luck, Ai. And I hope to read more of your work. Thank you.